You can blow it in an interview. You absolutely can. It's like a job. You know, you have to use good judgment. You have to know yourself. You have to know your application. It's really an opportunity. I guess it depends on how it's done. At NYU Stern, for example, our interviews are not blind. We've read your application in advance. They're by invitation only, so we only invite people that we're very interested in. And most of them are in New York with a trained admissions professional. It's different at different schools. So for us, it's a very in-depth personal conversation about who you are, where you're headed, is Stern a good fit for you or not. And you have to be prepared, you have to know yourself, you have to have done your research. If not, it comes out. It really comes out. Every once in a while there's somebody who looks great on paper, and then you meet them, and it's very different. The other thing that I think people forget about in the interview is it's a two-way process. You need to interview the school while you're there. You really want to make sure that it's the same fit. So as much as we tell people we're interviewing them, we want them to also be interviewing us.
I think the interview can make you or break you, and just as it could for a job interview. It's important to have a chance to sit face-to-face with the candidate and really determine why are they looking to get an MBA? What was the thought process behind the decision to leave a job and go out and pursue this degree? So we're also looking at what sort of traits come across within the interview process, because those same traits are actually going to come across 2 years later in the job interview process as the students are seeking a position. So the students that we're interviewing are going to ultimately represent our institution to the corporate world 2 years later. So the interview is a key element and very important.
For the most part, yes. Just like any job interview, the interview that you go through to be admitted to a program is very important. For most job interviews, you want to impress the candidates. Candidates want to impress the people that are interviewing them, and similarly with the business school, if they're inviting you to come to meet with them, it means that they want to find out more about you. So you certainly want to do your best to impress them, and yes, it can make or break a decision whether or not you would be admitted to a program.
The interview can do, could do both. It could make you, if maybe you're borderline with, your grades or your GMAT score, and then you come and show that, you are very mature and that you can tell a story about, as to what you have done, and say more of what's in the resume. Just so it could make you, yes, and it could break you if you just show up and you don't really show, that you have an objective and purpose, and really haven't given it much thought, whether, what you want to get out of graduate school. So definitely come prepared, come with enthusiasm, and ask the right questions. Yeah.
The interview is critical in many ways, simply because for many schools it's their chance for somebody to see you in person. We've read about you extensively on paper and think we have a great idea of who you are, but of course there's no replacement for seeing you in person. So at the same time, though, it shouldn't be something that you necessarily worry too much about. You need to present who you are naturally, have a clear idea of what your goals are and why you're applying to the school. So it's not something that you need to prepare endlessly for, but at the same time not blow it off, because in many cases it's a big determinant.
Generally, if an interview goes really horribly, there are opportunities to make up for that. If it's a phenomenal interview but nothing else in your application supports your ability to handle the academic rigor of the program, the best interview in the world isn't going to get you into school. Because first and foremost, you need to have the aptitude to do the work. Beyond that, the interview is really helping the school and you decide if this is a good fit. Is this the right place? What kinds of things are you going to bring to the academic community that will help the school and help you and your classmates? So it's an important piece. I don't know that there's one part of an application process that will make or break anything independent of all the other factors.
Well, ideally, the interview is just a natural conversation that flows along from the application. So it always goes best, I think, when the person's already done an application, or at least part of it, so that they understand the school and they understand the value of an MBA, and they have a life plan, at least partially laid out. So ideally, the interview just flows right along, And it can make or break an applicant's chances if they're not fully prepared, if they don't really know much about the school, or if they're not really clear with their focus on the future. So it's definitely helpful to do a lot of preparation ahead of time so that the conversation can flow, that there's no mystery questions involved.
It can. It can. I think it's a very powerful tool, but as with any of the individual aspects of an application, it's a fallible process. Because maybe you are paired with an interviewer that you have no chemistry with and you just can't quite get a connection with them. Or maybe you get somebody you feel so comfortable with, you let your guard down. And what we're looking at is, can you sell yourself? And that's what you should be thinking of the whole time you're doing this application. You are a product that you are packaging and selling. And how are you best going to do that? Not just for the business school, but for a company later, because that's the whole purpose of most of this.
I guess if you screw it up, it probably doesn't help your chances. It ought to be. I think if you're offered an interview, it's probably because the school has already decided that you have potential, and they're considering you seriously for the school. And therefore, they're looking for you to reinforce why you'd be a good choice, rather than trip you up. I think if you prepare, obviously, and it's a dialogue, it's not just them sort of firing questions at you, it ought to be a good opportunity for you to find out more about the school. So, do the prep work before you sit down to that interview. Breathe. And obviously the delivery needs to be natural. Good opportunity, even if the interview isn't going in the direction you want it to. You take the time to open up windows based on the questions that they've asked that can lead you to other subjects and convey some of the potential or the talent that you think will help to get a place in the school.
The short answer is yes. The B-School interview is a fantastic vehicle for telling the committee your story again, and now in a three-dimensional version of your application essays, which of course represents your best thematic approach, hopefully, again, a holistic and theme-based approach to your candidacy. You have a chance to highlight those in front of the people that will be making the decision. You have a chance to demonstrate your familiarity with an individual program and what makes that program unique and different. Because, frankly, there is a homogeneity between and among business school programs, curricula, especially in the first year. But the cultural aspects of programs are where the differentiation begins to be noted. And when one has a sense of why this program is custom-made for me and really fits my needs and what I can bring to the program from the perspective of a candidate, that's very compelling for an admissions committee person. One can get vicariously excited for candidates that have really identified these levers that they'll be able to take advantage of as a student in that program.
I think it depends on the program. So for some programs, the interview is going to carry more weight than for others. I mean, some of the schools actually allow anyone to interview. So you can just go to the campus, schedule an appointment, and have your interview. Other programs use the interview as a way to, it's part of the selection process. So they start with the entire applicant pool and they whittle that down to about half or maybe even as little as 30% of the candidates that they're most interested in. They invite them to interview, and in that case, the interview is probably going to have a more weight in the process. Although even in those situations, it's not always a guarantee that that the interview is kind of a final hurdle. It's usually another data point. I think that in all cases, after your interview, the committee goes through your entire application for a final time, and they do that with the benefit of the notes from the interview. And so one should probably think of the interview as another critical component, just like your GMAT result, just like your undergraduate GPA or the essays you wrote. It's just another piece in the puzzle. I will say that one thing I see over and over again with Clear Admit's clients is that people sometimes underplay the importance of preparing for the interview. And so we work really closely with our clients to make sure that they're practicing, that they're actually doing mock interviews, whether it's with a family member, with one of our counselors, but just going through the motions of answering these questions before they actually get to the real interview, because so many people spend all this time on the application process only to then just bomb the interview because they haven't prepared. They haven't thought about what they're going to be asked and how they can articulate all the wonderful things they said in their application in the context of an interview. So I would say it's important, prepare for it, but at the end of the day, it is just one piece of the puzzle.